Hi, I'm Chuck Pineau, and I'm in the garden.
Let's explore creative minds at the Pineau Garden. See what blooms, see what we find at the Pineau Garden. Writing film and art, they're worlds apart. So let's start uncovering the thoughts behind the things we enjoy all the time. Yeah, with evil web as adorable as they get.
So, Chuck, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
I am super excited to have you. I understand you've got a couple of really interesting comics under your belt.
Yeah, so I've been at this for about almost 5 or right around 5 years now. I mostly am known as an editor. So I do have a couple books under my belt. My first book was Welcome to the Void, my biggest book to date so far, and I think the one that's kind of, I don't know, most me is Belial, which we're now working on issue 3 and moving that forward, trying to get that mini series done. It's going to be a 4-issue mini. And then I also have a audio drama / novel that I do with Eric Cockrell, known as Chronicles of the Essence Guard.
So it's interesting. When I talk to creators who have crossed media like this, do you find that there's a huge difference between writing for comics versus writing for other media like audio novels?
Massive. Even just doing the script for the audio drama and then moving it into a novel was huge. So yeah, absolutely.
What was the genesis of it like for you? When did you wake up and say, you know what, I want to write things?
I've always loved telling stories. I've always loved the gears of storytelling. I've always kind of felt like I was sort of in tune with what people enjoyed, and I feel like storytelling at its core, it's about, I don't want to use the word manipulation because, of course, that has a terrible connotation, but it's about feeling people's emotions and sort of taking their emotions and their sensations out on a ride. And so I just love the idea of telling a story and having people excited and care about things and you know, angry, sad, all the plethora of different emotions that we can go through. And so I've always loved that. And even when I met my wife back in 1999, when I was in my early 20s, we got together as writers. And so I've been writing, you know, all of my adult life. It wasn't until about 5 years ago that I thought, no, I actually need to do something with this. I really I'm so tired of working for other people and doing stuff that just does not make me happy. And so finally I decided to jump in and really care about writing and working in stories. And so I've been doing that ever since.
I understand you got your start as an editor.
I did. So what happened was when I first got in because my cable man came by my house and saw the comic book art on our wall. And so we started talking, realized that he was making a comic, and I told him that I was a writer and I had written some comic scripts, which I had never done anything with. And so we worked together. We made a comic together. We tried to kickstart it, and it failed magnificently. And we just didn't know enough about comics or about like Kickstarter and whatnot. But the other thing we didn't know, or the other thing that I was realizing was I was no one. No one knew me. I had no fan base. How are you supposed to get how are you supposed to sell anything or get anyone onto Kickstarter? They're not just going to come to you. So I started helping out in the indie comic community. I started helping other people because I felt like I could I could assist in, you know, hopefully tailoring and helping other people with their stories and whatnot, and even proofreading and whatever they needed. And so someone gave me a shot. I worked with them for quite some time, and ever since, I've just been mostly editing. And so now I'm trying to really get my writing out there and show off what I can do.
Do you feel like the role of a writer is different than the role of an editor as far as their priorities to the book?
In a lot of ways, they're completely separate. And then in a lot of other ways, they're very much the same. I think the thing about an editor, when I feel like when it's done right, especially as a freelance editor, someone who is working directly for the creator, we're all about the book. I want what's best for the book. And so the problem is, a lot of times as writers, there's too much ego. There's too much of, but I really like this. Well, the book doesn't give a shit if you like this or, I'm sorry. Am I allowed to swear?
Yeah, you can swear like a sailor if you want to.
Oh, you're a keeper. I knew I loved you.
I love you too. Thanks, Jack.
So, yeah. See, now I'm going to let it fly probably. So, yeah. Just like the story doesn't give a fuck what you like or what you don't like or what matters to you or doesn't matter. That doesn't necessarily make a good story. And so as an editor, we have to kind of cut through that and go, hey, I get it. You like this thing. Maybe you can use it somewhere else, but it doesn't work here. And as a writer, that's so difficult to do. Of course, we need to have some of those skills. First off, to believe someone when they tell us that, but also to see it ourselves.
I also imagine like editors are sort of in service to someone else's vision as opposed to having the vision and being the visionary yourself.
Yeah, very, very much so. Yes, absolutely. And I mean, one of the first things I'll ask when someone says, hey, yes, let's work together. I would love to have you on. One of the first things I'll ask is, what's your audience? Who do we want to pick up this thing? Because really, at the end of the day, I end up not being in service to the author as much as I am to that audience.
Interesting.
So that audience, you might be writing something and I'll go, hey, that is not what is meant for this audience. That audience is not going to appreciate it. It's not for them. Maybe it's too old or too young or whatever. And those are truths that we need to hear now and then.
Do you think being a freelance editor is a different mindset than being a corporate editor?
Oh, absolutely. Now, I am certainly I'm speaking from a level of ignorance because I haven't done corporate editing, but I've certainly spoken with a lot of people who have, and I've worked with some companies on minor level, but not anything huge. Certainly not like a Disney or anything like that. But the thing is that when I'm working on just freelance, I'm working for you. I'm working for that person and them alone. It's their vision. And at the end of the day, everything I tell them is a suggestion. So I'm telling them, hey, I think you should do this, this, and this. And they can say no, no, and no. Now, that's not a great idea. That's not how we work well together. And I'll often, if someone continually says no, I'll be like, are you sure you want to do this? Like, you do not seem interested in hearing what I have to say. And maybe I'm not the right person for you. But also, sometimes it just comes down to, sorry, I lost myself for a second. Sometimes it just comes down to, you're not listening, you're not taking anything in. But yeah, I'm sorry, I completely lost myself there. We are editing this, right?
Yes, of course we are.
Okay, good.
I thought you were actually making a salient point, and that was, whereas a freelance editor, makes suggestions, they don't necessarily make mandates.
Well, and that's it, dead on. Thank you so much, Ava. Is it Ava or Eva?
It's Eva.
Eva. Okay, great. So yeah, and that's exactly what it is. It's just all about, I am in service to you when I'm freelancing, and when you're working for a corporation, you're in service to them. So of course, a creator might come to you and say, okay, here's the book, and you go, okay, well that's great, but that's not what they asked for. So we're gonna have to change this, this, and this. Whereas if it's your book, you go, no, I'd rather not.
You've gone beyond editing, though, and you've created this graphic novel. Is it a graphic novel or is it a miniseries? The Belial.
It's a miniseries that we intend to turn into a graphic novel.
Awesome. What's that about? It sounds really exciting.
Thank you. Yeah, it's about the original creator of Hell, and he's trying to take Hell back from Lucifer and the Four Horsemen of the Apocalypse. The idea basically being that when Lucifer was sent down by God, he was basically Belial was basically told, "Yeah, so God gave this to me," and Belial just went, "Oh, okay." And now his powers have been taken and given to the Four Horsemen. He's kind of been relegated to this place of complete servitude. He's a has-been. He owns a shitty bar in a crappy section of hell, and life is crap for him. And one day he just decides, no, you know what? I've had enough of this shit. This is my domain. It's going, well, not to be too on the nose, it's going to hell. And I want to take it back and make hell great again. And
Make
so
hell
he,
great again.
right? And so his mandate is to take on the Four Horsemen of the Apocalypse, kill them one at a time, take his powers back, and then give it to Lucifer.
I like the relatable protagonist, and even the way he's illustrated is pretty cool.
Thank you. Yeah, no, we've had a lot of fun with it. I love it. So, I mean, the idea was originally brought to me by Sean Barbour, who is an anchor who worked with me on Welcome to the Void. And he brought me this idea, and it was very dark and evil and all that kind of stuff. And I do have kind of a Christian background. I would call myself an agnostic now. I've learned way too much to just be a completely in-faith Christian. But I loved his idea, and I took it and I started sending him a treatment, and he liked my ideas and kind of my take on things. And then when I started writing it, I kind of realized, you know what? Every Hell book to me feels the same. It's dark, it's gloomy, it's evil, it's, dripping with blood and bones and blah, blah, blah. And it feels like it's all been done. And I really didn't want to do something that felt like it had been done before. And I come from a comedic background. I started out in comedy in the late 90s. I was part of a improv troupe in Toronto, Canada. And I just thought, you know what? If I could do this story as like an Adult Swim style absurdist comedy, I think that it would just give it a completely different look. It would be a whole different level of fun, and yet we would still be able to play with the evil and all the other stuff that he wanted to play with. And he was good enough to give me the chance and let me do that, because of course it was certainly a sidestep from his original vision. And he has a very much a similar sense of humor to myself. So we went out and we made it, and yeah, we've been having a blast with it ever since.
That is amazing. What was the collaboration like?
He's really good with me. He really gives me a very long leash as far as the writing goes. And so for the most part, what it's kind of come down to is we'll sit down and we'll talk about what we see the episode or the issue looking like, and I will come to him with a treatment, and we'll go over it, and he'll add in stuff that he would like to see, and maybe some jokes and ideas that he has that he thinks would be a lot of fun. And I try to keep as much of that as I can, just because, of course, it's his book too. I want him to have his fingerprint on it and whatnot. And then I'll go straight to scripting, and I will script it. And it's funny, when we first started, my wife is the editor, and a lot of what she was doing is proofing and just kind of making sure that the voices sounded right and all that sort of stuff. But when we did issue 2, I told Sean, I said, Sean, you realize that you're editing this book, right? And he was like, oh, I'm sorry, am I stepping on toes? And I was like, no, your voice is helpful. Like, what you're doing is helpful, but what you're doing is your editing. So I would really rather credit you as an editor and have you move forward doing that. And he was like, oh, okay. So, I mean, he still inks and he's still the co-creator and all that, but we added an editor credit to him as well because he earned it. I mean, he would come in and he would add ideas for jokes and all that kind of stuff, and he wasn't technically co-writing, so I didn't want to throw that in there. I didn't, and maybe that's my own ego, but I was like, well, that doesn't seem fair. He's not adding an awful lot, but he's certainly helping to tweak, which felt like an editor's role. So he took that on, and he was very happy, and I think it's worked out very well. We get along well, and we really both just want what's best for the book.
Is it unusual that that artists come to you with an idea?
You know, it kind of is. I find in the indie comic world, most artists are way too busy arting to worry about a lot of that. You know, they really they're especially early on, they're more interested in making the splash as an artist and with their gifts, and so they're usually not focusing on writing as much. And really, you can't walk into onto Twitter or in anywhere in the internet where all the indie comic people are together. You can't swing a dead cat, as they'll say, and not hit someone who says that they're a writer. And so it's just so many people are out there. They have all these ideas. They all want to make something happen. And so as an artist, it's like, I mean, it's just so much easier to just, if you have money and I think I can care about this project, then absolutely, I'll work on that. We'll make that happen. And so, that's not a normal thing. But, Sean is not a normal dude. And I mean that with all of the love in the world. And I know that he'll understand exactly what I mean when I say that.
Now, I know this is a book full of demons, but just broadly and sort of in general, how do you approach diversity and inclusion in your work?
It's funny. In Belial, that's not really a thing. You know what I mean? It's all demons. And so that wasn't really a huge deal, though I did realize in issue 2, I was like, you know what? We don't have a female. And that kind of bothered me a little bit when I stopped to think about it. So we did bring a female character in, and it was very important to me that, so there are other female characters in there, though there's like a background succubus that the artist absolutely just has a lot of fun with, so he throws them in there.
Awesome.
But, right? But it was important to me that we had a strong female character in there. So I did that. Her name is Chema. She's one of the fallen angels. And she's a take no shit from anybody kind of woman. And I loved writing her. And it was very important to me that she be strong, sexy, but we're not going to have her naked. She's not going to be someone who we're trying to necessarily use as a sex appeal sort of thing. It was very important to me that she was a strong female character. And then even in things like Welcome to the Void, that's actually a story that I like to say that story is very much about what I like to call casual racism. Growing up in a small town in central Ontario, Canada, that was the thing, especially in the 80s and 90s. It was just this kind of casual racism where it was like, you're not hateful, but the shit that you're saying is inappropriate, but you don't know that it's inappropriate. And so realizing that and growing up, I'm like, oh crap, yeah, that's some really not cool shit. And so that was something that was important to me to talk about and tackle. And so in Welcome to the Void, that was something that was important to me. The main character is Tibetan American. And it was funny. We had a buddy of ours in our small town. We had a friend who was born and raised in Egypt. And for the longest time, we just called him Egypt. And he seemed to love that. And everything was fine. And then it wasn't until I came here and everyone started calling me Canada. Because now I'm living in the United States. And I was like, I'm more than just that. And that's, oh my gosh, my dog. That's enough out of you. Come here, buddy. Come here. Yeah, I'm trying to talk, and you're not helping. Okay.
Dogs are always welcome on this show.
Okay, good. Well, I'm glad to hear that. So I realized, I don't like being called that. And I bet you he didn't like that either. And so that was something where I was like, yeah, no, there's some things that I can look at and deal with. So yeah, a lot of that it's very important to me. And I have 2 children. My 2 oldest children are trans. So, and I mean, they're both trans and gay, as a matter of fact. So that was very important to me. I haven't dealt with that as much in the books that I've written so far, though I do have some ideas. But that's mostly because I want to do that right. Like, if I'm going to talk about any of those characters and have those characters involved, for me personally, I cannot afford to fuck that up.
Does creating comics change the way you experience comics as a fan?
Yeah, very much so. Actually, I was just saying this recently. I look at so many scripts and finished books and all that kind of stuff that I've kind of stopped reading. Just because that's my job. So I'm excited. Like, we're going, a buddy of mine and I were doing the road trip to Emerald City at the end of the month, for December. And I've decided I'm going to take all of the comics that I got over Kickstarter and whatnot, because I love some of my Kickstarter people. And so I'm going to do reviews on them and read them and talk about them on my review channel, because I haven't been doing the reviews and I haven't been enjoying comics like I used to. So yeah, it certainly has kind of changed things. And of course, you have to kind of turn off that analytical part of you that looks and sees things like, man, what are you doing here? This was a terrible turn page. Or, why did you have, 3 pages in a row that were all 6 panels? There's no pacing going on. But like, you just have to kind of ignore that stuff and go, okay. Let's just enjoy the story, man.
Nice. And speaking of stories, how do your characters find their voices?
Oh, I mean, a lot of that is just kind of feeling out sort of the early origins of where those characters come from, who they are, what's important to them, what's not. Like, with Belial, he was the original creator of Hell, so there's a certain stoicism and there's this strange sort of mixture of strong leader and complete has-been that you have to find while you're writing this character, and that you have to consider. Whereas like his little buddy Link is this smart-mouthed, completely unevolved, uncaring figure. The list of things that he actually gives a shit about is so small and so minute, and he loves to be in everyone's faces, and he has complete, like, no sense of fear, and so it's just about kind of feeling their origins and kind of getting back into that voice. And so there's certain like things that I might watch or listen to or think about before I really start to kind of write certain characters.
Now, earlier you mentioned scripting. What kind of scripting do you do, and how intense is your plotting beforehand?
So, I mean, for me, I'm big into the full heavy script. I'm not a fan of the Marvel method whatsoever. I'll be honest, I kind of feel it's a little lazy. I understand that some great collaboration can come into it, but I feel like that's something that you almost have to okay that with the artist before you do that, and before you decide to do that. They have to want to do that, because really the Marvel method requires a lot more out of the artist, and they're already doing enough work. So I tend to be a full script kind of guy, and I'm huge into outlines. I feel like outlines save so much work for you. I find that I can usually end up, instead of having to do, people will talk about having to do 5, 6, 7 different rewrites. I can keep that down to like 2 or 3 tops, or even just 1, and then just kind of keep sort of playing with it and fixing it and whatnot. Because I already have my outline, I know how my scenes work. I know that everything kind of has already been shown to work together. And so when I'm scripting specifically for the artist. I want to inspire them to do better with what I've given them. I want them to look at that and go, this is cool. I see what he wants, but I can do better than that. And I want that because I hired them for their visual prowess, for what they can do and put on the page and for their imagination. And so, yeah, when I write, I just wrote something for Gregory Warrenchak, who's doing the art for Belial. And in one of the things I just said, man, you have such a great job, great fun time drawing monsters. Go nuts, have fun. And I love being able to know what the artist likes and give them that fun.
As a writer or even an editor on an indie book, you're sort of like, you're more than just a writer. You're doing production, you're doing coordination, you're doing project management, you're working on deliverables, and you're talking to printers and doing all sorts of cool stuff. I don't think writers get anywhere near enough credit. What's that like? Was it what you expected it to be?
I mean, no, it was so much more. There's so many hats to wear, so many things to do. And, you get to look and go, oh, I'm really good at this, but boy, do I suck at that. And your choices are limited. And really, the choice is either get really good at that thing you suck at or find someone who's good at it and get them involved. And so, like, for me, I love the marketing. I love talking about people's projects. I love showing them off. I love doing shows like this and talking to amazing people like you. And so I tend to get hired a lot because not only do they appreciate, hopefully, and respect what I do in the editing booth, so to speak, but they also know that I'm going to talk about the book. I'm going to show it off, and that's something that I feel a lot of editors don't do, and I'm hoping to make a little more popular. I feel like editors tend to be quiet, and they stay in their little thing, and they work on their stuff, and that's terrific, but we add something. We put some kind of a fingerprint on everything we do. And we then we completely walk away and we just move on to the next thing. And I'm like, nah, man, be proud of that thing that you did. Be proud of what you did. Because I know that I've had clients tell me, man, this story is so much better than it was going to be. And I'm so glad you're involved. And that's so heartwarming. And when I hear that, I want to share it. And so I do. And that I feel like that helps with the projects, and it hopefully helps get them funded and get them out there more.
Can I ask what you think about the state of comic book marketing in the industry right now?
I mean, are we talking indie, or are we talking mainstream, or are we just saying in general?
In general.
Man, in general, I feel like comics people, a lot of us really kind of grew up, sort of as basement dwellers. We felt relegated to the comic shop and kind of pushed aside, and we weren't allowed to talk about the stuff that we love. And even though a lot of that stuff is movies and such now, and we can talk about it, we still don't, especially with comics, because the movies tend to be this whole other thing, and they don't tend to even acknowledge the comics so much. So yeah, we're still kind of relegated to this, and I really feel like, especially in the mainstream, why do we have so many fucking movies that are superhero movies or comic movies, TV shows that are comics and whatnot? Why are these comics not more readily available in other places? Why are we not selling the comics? Like, why is Marvel not pushing Marvel comics at their most recent movie premiere? Why are they not out there for people to buy in the theater? I think it's massive missed opportunities with indies. I feel like so many people are trying, but a lot of people also are just like, don't worry, I'm just going to put my thing out there. It's good, and someone's going to see it. And you're like, no, that's not how it works. You have to break down doors. You have to go to shops. And actually, I found shops, when I first started, they were saying, a lot of people were like, oh, shops don't care about indies. No, actually, I have found quite the opposite. I feel like we have fed ourselves these lies. And we just kind of go, because we're used to being bullied, we just believe them. But no, there's so many amazing shops out there that that want to have our stuff on the shelves, and you just have to find them. You have to be willing to show them, and you have to do the footwork.
I would agree with that. I think broadly, as far as like the big two go, they are. It's only recently that they even started doing trailers for their books. Like the last couple of years, and that's something that's been happening on Kickstarter forever. I mean, I remember seeing them as early as 2016. You know,
Yeah, no, it's silly, and I mean, I want to say I don't understand why, but I guess we kind of do, right? Like, again, we feel relegated and pushed aside. But why are we the ones who are perpetuating that? We're not even only allowing it, we're making it happen. And to me, it's so fucking silly. And so, yeah, we just need to find a way to push our voices out there.
do you feel like digital or the existence of digital distribution changes the way you think about comics production?
It does. I think, there's certainly a lot of people who feel like, especially kind of older generation, a lot of the comic creators I know are around my age, late 30s, early 40s. And so they tend to be like, oh, I want physical. And I'm the same. I love a physical book. If I really love your book, I want a physical version of it. But I have kids who are way into the digital. They love having that. First off, it's cheaper for them. Second off, they can keep it on their device. It's literally everywhere they go. And we don't think about that stuff. We tend to be a little more selfish. I like this, so I'm going to do this. Nah, man, there's so many different ways that we can now publish and show off comics. I mean, Webtoons. Webtoons is huge.
It's a great platform.
Right? It's ridiculous. Tapas, all of these things. They're absolutely amazing. And yet so many of us are ignoring it because we don't like digital. Yeah, well, millions of people do. And why have you decided they're not worth your time and you don't like their money? Are you ridiculous? Like,
do you think part of it is that, Webtoons sort of, it doesn't have to have its own format, but it sort of does have its own format. And I think, for the same reason a lot of American creators don't really think about manga because the rules are different. They don't think about Webtoons because they just don't sort of understand the unique medium that is only Webtoon and not regular comics. Does that make sense?
Yeah, actually it does. I think for a lot of people, and it's kind of this sort of old person's thing. We see this a lot where people are like, oh, well, I don't want to learn this new thing. Well, either you want to be in comics and you want to take it seriously, or you don't. And sometimes that means learning new things and doing new things. I mean, think about all the creators who have been working, just been working in the last 20 years. How much has the internet changed what they do? How much has, being able to go from penciling and inking traditionally to now being able to do stuff via digital? Whereas now, like, everybody is using digital. So why are we not doing that in the way that we distribute our comics and in the way that we read and enjoy them?
It's fascinating. And, it's not just Webtoon, though. It's also things like, Comixology. I've had people say to me, well, I don't put any thought into Comixology at all. And I just think that's really something, considering how much volume Comixology does, especially on, new and unheard of titles.
Yeah, we're always talking about leaving money on the table. Now, I'm going to be honest. Comixology, there's not a lot of any of the people I've spoken to, they're not breaking the bank with Comixology. But, I liken it to conventions. When you go to a convention, do you only sit behind your table and try to sell comics, or do you also go out there network and try to meet new creators and editors and artists and all that kind of stuff, well, you do try to get out a little bit and see other stuff. And that's what Comixology allows us to do. It allows us to bring in a whole new um, sector of fans that we didn't have access to before. And so why would you not open yourself to that? And then inside your book, just leave a little advertisement. If you like this, here's our website to purchase more books, and they can go and then they can check out the rest of your catalog and pick it up physically, and hopefully, and that's where more likely where you're going to make your money, and hopefully spread the word. But sometimes spreading the word means not making very much in the short run, so that you make more in the long run.
Well, it's interesting because, I can think of probably half a dozen artists who are doing mainstream comics right now, and they were discovered through webtoons, through Comixology, and places like that, even like DeviantArt. These are people who had no presence in the physical world, but their online presence was significant. And that sort of goes back to what you were saying about, how do you do a Kickstarter? How do you drive people to the page?
Yeah, it's so true. I mean, people are everywhere, and the next generation of creators is anywhere. You have to be willing to look for them, and that means that for us, we need to put ourselves out there.
Can you think about a comic book that shaped you as a creator?
Oh, wow. I mean, early on,
Sure.
it was definitely the X-Men for me. I am a huge, and I know people are saying it all the time, but I love Chris Claremont as a writer. I love his work and everything that he's done, and all of the myriad of storylines he was getting out there and everything, and the characters he created and how he looked at character and story and all that kind of stuff. And I absolutely love that. And then as I grew older, I would say someone I really appreciated a lot was Brian K. Vaughan. Loved stuff like Why the Last Man, Saga, The Runaways. I mean, he just, everything he touches, all of that stuff is so different, and he really works so hard to find the voice of the characters and of the story. How each story has a different voice and whatnot. It's amazing. I absolutely appreciate both those guys so much.
Now, you said you weren't reading a lot, but is there anything you're reading right now?
Well, I mean, sadly, not really necessarily. Just because, again, I'm mostly reading scripts and what other creators are doing, and basically because I know I have this trip going, I've been creating this big stack of stuff that I've been reading. But I have some favorites. I love Kevin Joseph's Tart from Scout Comics. Absolutely.
Great book.
Oh yeah, right. Good. Yeah, absolutely amazing. I love the guy. He is such a good dude. But I liked his stuff even before I knew him. So it definitely has nothing to do with knowing him. One that slips under everyone's radar that no one seems to know about is Brian Silveira's Bun. Right now it's 3 issues, but if you have a chance to go out there and find it, it's this insane fantasy. I mean, I love fantasy, but he's on a whole other level. His stuff is just so amazing. It's about a boy who has this rabbit, and his mother passed away when he was young, and of course his father has become an alcoholic and just had a really hard time dealing with it. And the boy ends up magically being transported into this dark Narnia style world of the people above the trees, and then the people below the trees, and it's so neat, and it's so interesting, and the level of lore that he's created, and how the lore it connects from one world to the next. I love that book, and I wish that more people would check that out, because I know that he he doesn't get the eyes on it that it deserves, and I honestly fear so much that he's just going to give up, because that book is just so fucking good. So if you're out there, Bun, track it down and tell him Chuck sent you.
When was the first time a comic book made you cry?
Wow. Huh. I mean, you know what? I've gotten emotional over comics a lot. It's very easy to, as I'm sure you would agree. But I would say the first time I full on like started to have tears, and I'm sure that a lot of people probably haven't picked this one, but in the Age of Apocalypse, Sabretooth was a hero. And it was so neat to see Sabretooth as a hero. And he had this relationship with Blink, very similar to the relationship that Wolverine had with Kitty in the original 616 universe. And spoiler alert for a 25-year-old series, at the end of, I think, issue 2 or 3, Blink is trying to search for Sabretooth. It's basically sort of sacrificed himself to take on Holocaust so that she and other people can get away. And she shows up at the battlefield, and he's hung up on a cross with his gut spilled open. And just that one final page, it got me. It was etched in my brain. It's my single favorite piece of art probably in all of comicdom. No one ever seems to talk about it, but for me, I just was in awe. And I believe that was Joe Madureira who did that. And I just would stare at that piece all the time. And the emotions of her staring at this man, the closest thing she had to a father. I'm actually tearing up a little talking about it. And just the way she stared at him. If you guys could track down that single image, hopefully you'll get it. It was just, to me, it was amazing, and it spoke to what the best of what comics can be.
So who's the most inspiring creator in comics for you?
Huh. I mean, right now I'm so into, like, I only read indies, and that's not an attack on mainstream. All too often someone will say, I only read indies, and that's because mainstream sucks. I don't feel that way at all. It's just that I have a very limited amount of money because I make comics and they're so fucking expensive to make. And so if I was going to put my money towards anyone, I would rather put it towards my fellow indies. And so when I'm talking about people who inspire me in the indie community, I'm talking about people like my good buddy Travis Gibb, who works so hard to create amazing works and to try to bring people together in the community and whatnot. Yeah, you know what? There's like so many in my head all jammed together, but I think I'm just going to say Travis for now, because then I'm afraid I'm going to start to make a list and I will absolutely leave somebody out. So, Travis, you win this round.
That's beautiful.
Thanks.
Okay, so we're up against the end of the show. Are you ready for the fun part?
I mean, I felt like we were already in the fun part, but yeah, I'm down.
Nice. Okay, so which Ninja Turtle do you see yourself as?
Oh, dang. That's a really good question, right? And as we evolve, that so changes. Like, I know as a kid, I was all about Michelangelo. He was fun. He wanted to have a great time. But then, Leonardo started to make sense to me too. He was someone who took things seriously. He wanted to make sure that everyone was taken care of. There was this bit of responsibility. And of course, Raphael, who just can't take things seriously. He's sardonic. He's cynical. I get him. They're all moods. For me, the one that I least connect to is Donatello. I just don't connect to him, sadly. But the rest of them, they're all moods for me. And any one day, I could be one of those or all three.
When I was a kid, I strongly saw myself as Donatello. But these days, I'm more of a Michelangelo, I think.
I love that. See, and I feel more connected to you knowing that you're a Michelangelo. I'm like, oh, cool. Now I know how to deal with you. Now I know how to connect with you because I know that you're a Michelangelo.
Right on. Okay, so if you had a Batman style utility belt, but it was made of items that are relevant to your life, what would be in it?
I mean, my phone. I have clients talking to me all the time. I have, just my phone. Sadly, is way more important than I would ever have wanted it to be, but it really is. Um, a notepad with pens. I'm always jotting down quick thoughts, and I find that notepads, like the digital notepads, to me, I always forget that they're there, so I'm not able to look through them.
Sure.
Whereas a physical notepad, I see it around, I'm like, oh, cool, what's in here? And I'll flip through. I'm like, damn, that's a good idea. Yeah, I need to use that. So definitely a notepad. Um, you know what though? I mean, in all honesty, those are the most important things to my world. I love, obviously, I love my family and all that kind of stuff. But as far as getting out in the world and whatnot, um, my what I'm creating and my stories and all that kind of stuff, it's so important to me. And so being able to jot that stuff down and be connected to the creators and the stories and all that as quickly as possible, those are the most important things.
What inspires you?
I'm a passionate person. People people are what inspires me more than anything. I both love and hate people, and that's good. And I know really you hate people. That's good, but passion is so important to me because even if you hate something, it's usually because there's something. Hate and love are so interconnected. So like if I hate something, it's usually because I love something else, and that thing that I've hated has somehow ruined it or disparaged it or something. And so those things are so important, and people just have that stuff with them so much, and I love watching people, connecting with people, seeing how they react to things, like all that kind of stuff really excites me and whatnot. And another thing that really inspires me is heavy metal music. I i again, it's something that is so passionate, and to me, especially, like, and I'm sure there's a segment of the population that's going to hate me for saying this, but if you push aside the 1980s metal, which I feel was very corporate and very much like, hey, we know that you like girls and rock it out, so let's talk about that. Yeah, fuck that shit. It's not, to me, that's just not, it's not real. But like, there's so many, to me, metal, it's raw, it's real emotion. It's saying what you think without editing, and just kind of getting it out. There's this line from Killswitch Engage. They have this beautiful moment. It's this metal song. You would never know that they're singing about someone they love who they've lost. And the line is, I mourn for those who never knew you. And I hear that line and I'm like, holy shit. That's so fucking raw and beautiful. And yet he's screaming it. He's yelling this. And it's just, that kind of stuff just overtakes me. And so even when I'm writing, I'll have metal music on, and usually it's stuff that I've heard before, so it's not necessarily taking me out of what I'm doing, but I like to feel that passion is kind of circulating through my blood and through my body, and it's hopefully coming out in my fingertips.
Do you have a criteria for what you look for in a minion or a sidekick?
You mean as a real life minion or a sidekick, or do
Yes.
you mean like when writing?
When you're in real life, I would say.
Okay, so I I'm I tend to be a fairly strong personality, but I don't think that I want a sidekick or a minion as much as I want an equal. My wife for me is like the perfect quote unquote sidekick. She's certainly not. We're peers and equals and all that, but I mean, she's the perfect partner for me because she's an amazing listener, and all of the stuff that I am absolutely shit at, she is so good at. And the stuff that I'm good at, she's not good at. So I love people that I can collaborate with, and who I need someone who trusts me. Who every once in a while I can just go, hey man, I need you to trust me on this one. Yeah, cool, go for it. Like when I'm working on Essence House, the audio drama with Eric Cockrell, we've done it to one another. We're like, hey, I have this really cool idea, but if I try to explain it, you're going to shoot it down because I can't explain it well. I'm just going to do it. Like, all right, cool. And we'll go out there and we'll do it. And every time it's been like, oh, that's so cool. I love what you did. But yeah, I don't know how the fuck you were going to explain that to me. And so Eric to me has been such an amazing partner. And because again, where I'm bad, he's good. Where I'm good, he's not as strong, and we let each other play. And I think that's really important.
What's your favorite food?
Oh, dang. I mean, I'm getting. It was always Italian food for me. Like lasagna was always one of my favorites. Especially, I loved. Back home, they had this. They have this grocery store called Loblaws, and they had this 7 cheese vegetable lasagna. And you're
That
like,
sounds
what?
amazing.
It was so fucking good. Corn, cauliflower, and the thing is that I love meat. I have no problem with the ground beef, but for some reason, if you put an amazing meat lasagna beside this vegetable lasagna, I went to that vegetable lasagna every time, and I would ignore the meat because it was so fucking good. But the longer I stay in Texas, the more I gotta say, real tacos. Oh, damn.
Those are important.
Right? I get it when people like tacos are life, but my problem is that the more I like real tacos, the less I like not real tacos. Like people be like, "Oh, you want to go to Taco Cabana?" Not particularly. What about Taco Bell? Hey, there's a little taqueria down here. Let's go there. Let's check this out. Because I'm telling you, that place is going to blow your mind.
I passed through Phoenix, Arizona 20 years ago, and there was this little hole-in-the-wall taco place, and that was all they made. They made just street tacos, basically. And I ordered one, and they were cheap. I mean, this was 20 years ago money, and they were only like 95 cents at the time. And I bought one, and they were tiny, and I'm thinking, what the hell, So I ate it, and then I went up and I ordered another one, and before you know it, I just said, fuck it, dropped a 20 on the table, and I ate all of them. And it was amazing. It was the best thing ever.
Right? And I have to, because we'll do tacos, we would do taco night back home. And now my friends will be like, hey, man, dude, I just had some amazing tacos. And I'm like, I'm not sure I believe you. Like, what did you do? What did you have? Because I remember the stuff we made back home, and I loved it at the time. But now, nah, man, I can enjoy them and just be like, oh yeah, this is nice. This is food, and it's not bad. But man, there's nothing like a real, authentic taco. Damn.
So, where do you find joy?
I find joy in just being open. Just feeling like I can be me. I think we're seeing so many people fight for the freedoms right now to be them, and I'm lucky enough that for the most part I have that freedom, and I love to be with people who feel like they can be themselves, and I love to be around anyone. Just I don't know. There's something about hanging out with someone and knowing that they're just completely in the moment that's just, it's so fulfilling and it's so much fun. And so I love to be able to hang out like you and I right now. We're just having this great time. And of course, there should be this kind of air of professionality. This is going to be on the air and all that. But I think you and I are actually genuinely connecting and having a good time. And I don't think, you were very good when you sent me the invite at the beginning, and you were like, hey, I need you to know that this is how I feel about certain things. And I was like, great, you and I are on the same page.
Awesome.
And I felt at that point that, like, cool, we can just be open and free and have a good time. And I feel like that's what we're doing now. So yeah, man, anytime I can just drop all the fucking masks and just be Chuck or whatever the fuck I am at that moment, it's just amazing.
That's awesome. So congratulations, you've defeated Thanos. You now have the Infinity Gauntlet in your possession.
Oh my gosh.
And you are capable of manipulating any aspect of reality that you so see fit. So, what's the first thing you do with that?
I eliminate money. Fuck money. I fucking hate money. I hate the greed it creates. I hate how it makes people feel. And as someone who does not and has not had money, you're able to you look out into the sea of people who have so much, and they don't they don't understand what it's like for those who don't. And so I would love to just get rid of currency altogether, because I could say, oh, I want to get rid of greed, but then that's changing what people fundamentally are. And then what am I left with? Like, I'm left with these puppets that I've created. So if I could break some of the constructs that allow us to be a greedy society and allow that to reign, then good, that's what I'd do. So I think the first thing I would get rid of is money. Fuck the dollar.
Nice. So what's next for Chuck Pineau?
Ooh, good question. Right now, I'm working on Belial 3. I'm hoping to have that out middle of next year. I think I'm feeling it already. I feel like this is going to be a really nice step up from the last one. I think Sean and I have worked really hard to create something. And you know what? Something beautiful. I'm talking about a hell action comedy where we do dick and fart jokes and stuff, but there gets to be some beauty in it. And so one of the sad things that happened was during the last campaign, Sean lost his grandfather. And last April, I lost my stepfather. And that was tough for both of us. And so we decided to bring them in as characters, as some comic relief. And I think being able to add them into the book and have some fun with those two guys has been really freeing for me. And I think for Sean, knowing that his grandfather, who supported him so much and supported him becoming a comic creator and whatnot, having him as a part of the book is so important to him. And so, yeah, Belial 3, I think, is going to do really well, and I think people are really going to enjoy it. I'm very excited. And then, of course, we have season 4 of Chronicles of the Essence Guard, which will then create the second half of what will be the second book. So I'm very happy for those things. And of course, a myriad other projects as far as editing and writing in anthologies and all that kind of stuff. I have, a piece for a dinosaur book that's coming out. I have a kids dragon book that I get to do a piece for. I'm doing something for Travis Gibbs, Cthulhu Invades Wonderland. I'm actually doing 2 pieces for that. I get to write the Caterpillar and I get to write Alice. So I'm very excited for both of those. So yeah, so much cool stuff coming in the pipe. I think 2022 is going to be amazing, and it's going to be me being able to show off a lot more of my writing, hopefully.
So Chuck, I wanted to thank you for taking the time to come and hang out on my humble little podcast.
I love the Panel Garden. It's a wonderful little place, and I've had a really good time with you. So thank you so much for having me.
Likewise. So where can people find you online?
Well, you can find me on Twitter at ChuckyPin. You can find me on Facebook, Chuck Pineau. Same thing on Instagram. My YouTube is Chuck's Raw Reviews. And on that, I do weekly, basically like what we had here, weekly creator interviews, except for that one, it's called Chuck's Shop Talk. And I sit down with a person live and we just talk shop. We talk about creation and the business that goes into what we do. And most of the time it's comics, but I've talked to stunt coordinators for movies. I've talked to people who work at Ren fairs. I talked to a leather worker. Like, I've been able to do all sorts of really cool interviews and meet all sorts of really cool people.
Awesome.
So that's fantastic. And then you can find my publishing wing, Bonfire Press, on Facebook.
And now it's time to go. Wasn't that fun? The Panel Garden is a show about the things we love. It's produced and hosted by the adorable Eva Webb. Opening theme by Antonia Marquis and Tyler Scott. Closing theme by Mikey Flash of Speed Force Music. The credits are read by the awesome and talented Kat Britano. That's me. And if you're feeling super generous, feel free to go to buymeacoffee.com/EvaIsAdorable. There, you can support what we do by chipping in as little as $1. Not financially able? That's okay. Shares on social media and reviews on your favorite podcast listening platforms help us a ton. And that's it, babies. That's all we got. Thank you for being awesome, valid, and perfectly gorgeous. We couldn't do this show without the love and support of the amazing people who listen. That's you. Join us next time for another death-defying adventure in cyberspace. Bye.